Now we'll talk about something less important, the Bolshevik Revolution.
Even though the October Revolution happened over a century ago, and even though there is not yet the imminent threat of such a thing happening in the West, the ghost of 1917 still haunts the powerful and reactionary, which is why they still beat about it, slander it, and spread fear about it even where it does not exist. Because, even though the danger of communism is not urgent yet, they must demonize and falsify its history to prevent the revolutionary movement from growing, especially during times where more and more people look for lessons to change the world. The October Revolution shook the foundations of world imperialism and thereby decisively sparked the struggle of the international proletariat and the colonized against the imperialist bourgeoisie. Everyone seriously wanting to change this global system based on oppression, climate destruction, and mass slaughter must learn about its history. What strategy enabled the revolutionaries to topple the ruling class in the biggest country on earth? Which of its aspects could be applied everywhere? And what are the concepts developed and applied by its leaders, which form the basis of any successful proletarian revolution?
No matter what you think of the Soviet experiment and so on, there's a shit ton that we can learn both from the Bolshevik Revolution and the way the Soviet experiment developed. Sure, the modern context is rather different than it was in 1912, but the contradictions are the same. The class dynamics are extremely similar, and the methodology, the majority of the methodology utilized by the Bolshevik Revolution is very, very applicable even to the modern context in particular parts of the world. So there's a lot to learn from it, and everybody calling himself a socialist, again, no matter what your opinion of the Soviet Union is, can learn a lot, both from the successes and failures. So pay attention, children, and I'm going to continue eating. I got a second portion. I gotta admit, it's pretty interesting what the woman made for me.
Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov was born in 1870 in Simbirsk, a quiet town in the heart of Russia that would later be renamed Ulyanovsk in his honor. Some decades earlier, the massive Pugachev peasant rebellion had found strong support in this region, which was still home to many oppressed nationalities long resentful of the empire's grip. The Ulyanovs were not wealthy, but they were doing reasonably okay by provincial standards.
He looks so much like his dad, right, Jack? Like fucking carbon copy, dude.
His father, who died when Vladimir was still a teenager, had risen from a serf background to become a physics teacher. His mother, who lived until just a year before the October Revolution, had also been a teacher, but dedicated her time to raising the family's many children. Her life was anything but easy. Over just a few years, she lost her husband, 2 children, saw one executed, and the other 3 imprisoned or exiled. Vladimir enjoyed a normal education and had a close relationship with his older brother, Alexander, with whom he liked to study. They were such nerds together that whenever someone disturbed them, they'd say, "Kindly favor us with your absence. We have to study." Vladimir quickly made a mark as the pride of the school, as his school supervisor would call him. History often has a sharp sense of irony. That supervisor's son was none other than Alexander Kerensky, the future head of the Russian government, which was to be overthrown by a movement led by the former pride of the school.
The world is so small, isn't it?
Before we move on, I just want to say that I put a lot into making these videos, and support on Patreon makes it possible for me to keep doing them the way I do. If you can afford it and want to help the channel grow and stay alive, your support really matters. Every single person who contributes is greatly appreciated. Thank you. In the 1860s, the vast majority of Russia was still peasants. The so-called Edict of Emancipation we talked about in the last video formally freed Russia's peasantry from serfdom. This was not because Russia's ruler, Tsar Alexander II of the House of Romanov, had sympathy for the poor as was the propaganda back then, but out of adapting to the new economic reality. Industrialization needed a large workforce and the new banks needed to grow. The noble landowners, looking to profit in the new markets, needed more people to become wage laborers. So this reform replaced feudal bondage with bondage through debt, which in order to repay, much of the destitute peasantry had to find seasonal work in the quickly growing towns. Back then, the seasonal workers with close ties to the peasantry were more numerous than permanent industrial workers. This interconnection will further the solidarity between workers in the cities and the peasants in the villages, as we will see. In the 1870s, Russia ended its state oil monopoly and opened the oil-rich Caucasus to private companies. Since Russia industrialized later than Western Europe, its government and banks partnered with and relied heavily on loans and investments from powerful Western capitalists. One of them was the ultra-wealthy Nobel family, which built the largest oil refineries. The chemist and capitalist Alfred Nobel.
Thank you, Anonymous. Thank you very much for the $5. Getting very close to gambling now. Very, very exciting.
Who was the inventor of dynamite, went on to establish the Nobel Prizes, funded in large part by the blood and sweat of the Russian masses, and still serving as a purveyor of Western imperialist hegemony. Nobel's dynamite company later operated under the IG Farben, a major donor and partner of the Nazis, producing the poison gas used in concentration camps and part of the anti-Soviet counter-revolution. But the Nobels struggled to sell Russian oil abroad because there was no reliable transport route. This pushed the construction of massive rail lines, which was funded especially by French capitalists, foremost among them the Rothschild family, who was also heavily invested in the Baku oil fields. Other powerful Western firms and families soon joined and built massive fortunes from the plunder of Russia's resources and labor. Those came predominantly from France and Belgium, but also from Germany, Britain, or the US. This left Russia's empire heavily indebted to foreign capital, but as usual, this debt fell on the backs of the vast majority of the poor people. And it would be this threat posed to capitalist wealth by Bolshevik nationalization and debt cancellation that would compel countless Western countries to invade the country in order to crush the revolution. The revolutionary figures and their personal lives covered in this series are of course important, but these have to be seen in the context of this new reality. Without rising capitalism in Russia, there would be no working class, and without the working class, there is no working class struggles, and without working class struggles, there can be no communist revolutionaries with any significance. Whereas bourgeois democracy is the ideal political form of capitalism, absolute monarchies are typical for feudal class societies. However, while the monarchies had been abolished in much of Western Europe, Russia remained under the outmoded and brutal autocracy of the Romanov dynasty. So this decaying system gave rise to a whole generation of thinkers disillusioned with Tsarist power. Many of these thinkers, commonly, though often
Okay, Hugo has finally ate his slop. Thank you for your patience. Thank you very much for your patience. There we go. Ugh. Do you look good? Oh, yeah, baby. Hoo-ha, baby. Hoo-ha. Thank you for your patience. Thank you very much.
Misleadingly branded as nihilists, launched fierce critiques of all authority and demanded revolutionary change. Foremost among them was Nikolai Chernyshevsky, often referred to as an important utopian socialist and the founder of Narodism, which we introduced in the last video.
Yep.
He received high praise by Marx and the Russian Marxists for being important in exercising a revolutionary influence, the idea of the struggle of the masses for the overthrow of all the old authorities. Just a year after the Emancipation Edict,
Narodniks. It sounds so cool. Being a Narodnik. I am a Narodnik, sir. It sounds badass. I don't know.
he was sentenced to death. In prison, he wrote his famous novel, What Is to Be Done,
Yeah.
which was an immense inspiration to later revolutionaries. Among them, Vladimir Ulyanov, who will soon write a crucial political pamphlet with the same title. Seeing the brutal conditions of it,
But like to give you extra context, like the name of the book, like what is to be done, that's a sentence, right? In Russian, it's literally what do, what do. So the both of them wrote a book that's what to do, a very famous 21st century meme.
industrial workers,
Not even what did to do, but like what do or do what, yeah. Что делать? Что делать? Мы делаем за... Работаем за народ.
the Narodniks,
Hello, stalker. Are you a stalker or a narodnik?
believed that Russia should avoid the capitalist phase
What we about to do?
entirely, which they associated with negative Western
Nothing is to be done, Vladimir Liberal.
influence. They idealized the peasantry, their communal way of life, that could form the basis for a uniquely Russian path to socialism without passing through brutal capitalism, as many Marxists envisioned. It was uncontroversial among most Russian Marxists that Russia, like other societies, passes through the historical modes of production, successive stages in how people organize labor, property, and class relations. This notion of stages will remain very important throughout the debates we'll talk about in this series. The Narodnik intellectuals wanted to overcome their isolation as educated, privileged members of society and connect with the vast majority living in the countryside, leading to the famous Going to the People movement in the 1870s, to live among the peasants and to incite them toward revolution. So the idea
Agitation, agitation, agitation. But they couldn't just stream on the internet or post epic memes or make videos or write articles. These motherfucking crazy motherfuckers, you know how much time it would take an old Bolshevik to be able to talk to 500 people, the number we are in here now, once. Not multiple times, just once, okay? He would have to spend a year just hunting down 500 people and sitting down properly with them to explain shit to them and then to get them riled up enough to come to the village square and then discuss particular things while, you know, the speaker stands above them. The reason I'm bringing all of this up is we have no excuses whatsoever. We have no excuses whatsoever. It was so... Sure, we have other contradictions that we have to fight that they did not have to, okay? Commodity fetishism, consumerist, hyper-consumer culture, reformist pacification of revolutionary fervor, you know, the fucking military-industrial complex at the size it is now, blah, blah, blah. A lot of contradictions that they, to an extent, did not have to deal with. But it was still so much harder to spread an idea. So much harder to spread an idea. So we have no excuses.
was that they go to people to tell them that their system is morally superior, easily convincing the peasants, which are then on board to change society. The notion that political change happens mainly in this way is also a normal instinct among newly politicized leftists, since this explanation of change is conditioned by the dominant consciousness in our liberal society, namely that change happens primarily through the marketplace of ideas and peaceful discourse. Many Narodniks, therefore, adopted a version of the great man theory introduced in the last part, as they believed that the peasantry could not do any of this on their own, but that it needed outstanding personalities to achieve transformation. Friedrich Engels explained the difference between utopian and scientific socialism. Utopian socialists, he said, think that socialism is an accidental discovery of this or that ingenious brain, and not a stage that necessarily arises out of real conditions. Marx and Engels mocked the unscientific view that the genius sociologist, quote, has now arisen, that the truth has now been clearly understood is not an inevitable event following of necessity in the chains of historical development, but a mere happy accident. He might just as well have been born 500 years earlier, and might then have spared humanity 500 years of error, strife, and suffering. In their view, the idea that people will begin to implement a utopia independent of the course of history and the concrete contradictions between the classes is like trying to invent YouTube before the internet exists.
Yes.
There are many manifestations of utopian socialism today as well. Some of them include attempts to shift the idea of revolution from taking power to simply reimagining capitalism in day-to-day life. Modern-day so-called socialists like public intellectual John Holloway argue that capitalism is something that we create every day, so we should just stop creating it. Quote, if we all stayed in bed tomorrow, capitalism would cease to exist. It's a bit like the idea of simply convincing as many people as possible to launch a general strike, as if persuasion alone could substitute for the necessary material and organizational conditions. Holloway even goes as far as to dismiss all previous decades of revolutionary transformations made by hundreds of millions of people because these experiments didn't work out in the end anyway, without really providing good explanations of what exactly did and didn't work, preventing us from learning from history, drawing conclusions and using them to guide future action. Imagine some dude at the physics department that decides to ignore all existing theories and previous experiments and, instead of standing on the shoulders of giants and move from there, proclaims to reinvent physics entirely from scratch. This kind of leftist reinventors of wheels are shaped by the dominant liberal ideology that treats individual brilliance as more important than collective creation. I hope this difference between utopian and scientific socialism will become clearer later in this video, as it is key in grasping the science of revolution. The Narodniks' romantic strategy quickly fell apart as they were arrested en masse, often at the request of the peasants themselves, who were mostly illiterate and didn't get what these aristocrat intellectuals were babbling about. As their approach proved ineffective, some disillusioned and impatient Narodniks adopted a more radical strategy by turning to revolutionary terrorism to free Russia. History is too slow, concludes one activist. In 1878, Vera Zasulich, a radical young student from a noble family, attempts to kill
the difference between following a man and following a man's idea, absolutely.
Police chief of St. Petersburg. In a sensational surprise, and against all expectations, the jury finds her not guilty, and she flees to Switzerland. A year later, a new group is born, Narodnaya Volya, People's Will, which believed that through propaganda of the deed, they would be lifting the revolutionary spirit of the people and its faith in the success of the cause. And after multiple attempts, they take their most desired prize. In Switzerland, Vera Zasulich begins to rethink the strategy based on assassinations and starts questioning Narodism in general, and sends letters to Karl Marx himself, asking him whether the Russian peasant commune could serve as a basis for the transition to socialism, making the stage of capitalism unnecessary, saying this would be a matter of life and death. Marx replied and said his analysis in Capital described how capitalism arose in Western Europe, not necessarily everywhere. He emphasized that the fate of the peasant commune was not predetermined and depended on Russia's social and political conditions. This exchange showed that Marx's theory of historical change was not rigid and mechanically Eurocentric. Over time, as he began to focus extensively on non-Western societies, he began to recognize that different societies could take somewhat different paths to socialism. He, for instance, began to change his opinion on the revolutionary potential in Russia. At first he thought there was no such potential, and later thought there was indeed. In any case,
it is incredibly important to recontextualize based on local both material conditions and the contradictions when looking at what kind of mechanism should be applied to both enact revolution, but more importantly to stabilize everything post-revolution, and how to restructure the economic models of a particular society while minimizing the necessary damage that inevitably, causes.
Zasulich slowly but surely turned
That's why you have to adapt. You can't, you can't use the same model in Colombia and in Germany and in Russia and in Ghana. You absolutely cannot.
to Marxism. In the Swiss city of Geneva, along with former Narodnik Georgy Plekhanov and with former Russian anarchist Pavel Axelrod, they founded the Emancipation of Labor, a small but widely read Russian exile circle,
This is literally chat. They just described my chat.
the first proper Marxist group in Russia. Ulyanov looked up to Plekhanov as his guide and intellectual mentor. Their disagreements were not that important in those early years. However, this would change over time. In 1881, Narodnaya Volya blew up the carriage of Tsar Alexander II. But he survived, shouting, "Thank God." But then another attacker threw a bomb, saying, "It is too early to thank God," and the Tsar finally died. The Narodniks believed that this would show to the peasants that the Tsar was not a supernatural being commissioned by God, but that he was a mortal like everyone else. Of course, the reality was that the Tsar was quickly replaced, but Tsarism itself was not.
Exactly.
As a consequence of this action, the new Tsar, Alexander III, who was even more conservative than his father, unleashes brutal repression. He eliminates people's will through a campaign of executions and establishes the foundations of the fierce and notorious secret police, the Okhrana, to destroy revolutionary politics once and for all, a notorious, powerful intelligence agency that will play a big part
The OG White Russians.
in the coming revolution. The autocracy's propaganda spread the narrative that the murder of the Tsar was a Jewish conspiracy of nobles that killed him because he had freed the peasants, leading to massive police expansion. And
We had hour 2, a kind reminder to support this show. It is 100% sponsor fee, 100% ad free, 100% principled, and 100% funny. Ha ha ha! Jokes aside, if you want to subscribe, it goes towards this program and the other programs that I participate in, as well as bringing us closer to potentially gambling, which I really, I don't think I said it enough times, really want to do today with you motherfuckers, okay? So either help out a fellow chatter in need, subscribe because you feel like it, use a free Prime. They're free. What the fuck? They're free. You just click a button and you become a based subscriber, like based Shawshank Redemption. Just gifted 5. Thank you so much, Shawshank Redemption. Very nice to see you, man. Very nice to see you.
bloody pogroms against Jewish communities. The narrative that leftist revolutionaries were part of a Jewish plot to undermine Christianity and the old order would remain a potent story for the counter-revolution throughout the next century.
So what did they do here? They used insanely negative stereotypes that were already developed against a particular ethnicity/religious group, and they attached those negative stereotypes of those people to a political movement. It's kind of like doing dominoes with hate. You stack one on another, you associate one with the other and the other one with the first, and you create a new enemy.
The remaining Narodniks were not chilling, and again aimed for the new Tsar's head to spark a mass uprising. But in March of 1887, the reorganized police proved its efficacy and uncovers the assassination plot. 5 young student activists are hanged, among them the chief ideologist and chemist of the group, the 21-year-old Alexander Ulyanov, who happens to be the big brother of Vladimir Ulyanov. This had a profound and lasting impact on the teenage Vladimir, who
Oh yeah, baby. Talk about radicalization. Thank you, Zans. Very kind of you. Developing World subscribers lift up the entirety of the sky here. Thank you very, very kindly.
was devastated. The death of his older brother had sparked his lifelong quest to decimate the empire.
And he succeeded. Imagine that. Imagine the insane lore. Yeah. He did not just simply focus on, I don't know, the head of the police that did that, or the individual police officers that arrested them, or the judge that said, okay, you're going to die now. He focused on the entire, not even country, on the entire system, and then proceeded to decimate said system. And he always wanted to do that. He was always a principled communist, revolutionary, and so on. But events such as this drive you far harder than simply theoretical understanding and love for fellow man that every socialist has in them. The belief that we can do better. That coupled with revenge, though, Holy Mother of God, you got a leader. Thank you, username. 20 months, you crazy motherfucker. Always love pronouncing your name. Username 128934. Thank you very much for that bussy.
Vladimir Ulyanov was rejected at
Fun fact, Lenin and Putin share the same name. And Zelensky. I'm going to name my first son Vladimir. I'm going to name my first son Vladimir 100%. Obviously because Putin. I'm a big fan. Because of Lenin. I'm serious. My first son's name will be Vladimir because of Lenin. I'm 100% doing that. And my future wife agreed on that as well.
various universities for being the brother of
I'm going to call him Vlad. What's up, Vlad?
a death sentence terrorist, but he eventually barely managed to get into Kazan University at age 17 to study law. But a few weeks later, he was expelled for taking part in student political activity and was exiled to his mother's small country estate, where his older sister Anna was also put under house arrest, suspected of being associated with Alexander's politics. Anna later was actively involved in the October Revolution, just like Maria, her and Vladimir's younger sister, who will also be imprisoned and exiled for communist activity. Vladimir later remembered how the liberal neighbors of the Ulyanovs shunned them for being the family of Alexander and developed a deep hatred for their hypocrisy. In exile, he met old revolutionaries and spent his time studying obsessively in an old kitchen, especially the newly translated Capital by Karl Marx and other socialist works, instead of studying for university, just like you right now. He was so immersed in the study of Marx's works, rereading them with no options to use Google or ChatGPT to generate summaries. His wife later wrote about him that even during the days after the revolution, at critical moments, he would often say, "Let's ask Marx's advice." He then was put under constant police supervision, but was eventually permitted to take his law exams, and as the only student, obtained the highest mark on every subject.
Remember, the way you guys say, can you explain that in Fortnite terms? Lenin often said, can you explain that in linen terms? Who knows knows.
Graduating with a first-class degree. Whatever one thought of him, both his admirers and opponents agreed that he was not.
We will have women as the main characters of video games to anger men that have never had sexual intercourse. Famously, Vladimir Lenin, the gamer.
Not stupid. But his graduation
Vladimir Gamergate Lenin.
celebrations were soon overshadowed when his younger sister Olga died of typhoid fever at just 19. Another tragedy for the Ulyanov family. He then practiced law in Samara, defending poor peasants. This experience left him hating the class bias of the legal system, distrusting all lawyers in general, even those claiming to be Marxists, and it provided him with a highly refined bullshit detector to spot opportunism and liberalism behind leftist-sounding phrases and arguments, as we will see in more than enough instances. While he had great respect for Chernyshevsky, he couldn't stand the later Narodniks. With his training in Marxism, he began to criticize their romantic strategy of going to the countryside and educating people to accept an agrarian-type socialism on a moral basis. Ulyanov said their approach was based on wishful thinking, relying on noble intentions instead of historical materialism, the real class struggle, and the laws of social and economic development that Marxism revealed. He explained that their thinking represented the individualistic, small producer, or petit bourgeois point of view, which, while still in contradiction with the big bourgeoisie, was still different from the consciousness developed by the working class. Modern large-scale industry required workers to think as a collective, recognizing the value of taking on shared responsibility.
Also, the contradiction between the petit bourgeois and the bourgeois, resolving the contradiction between the petit bourgeois and the bourgeois always happens inside of the confines of capitalism. And to an extent, the contradiction cannot be solved because even if we had, I don't know, mom and pop shops leading a glorious revolution against big business, against Walmart, against Amazon, etc., okay, they hang Jeff Bezos, they hang Mark Zuckerberg, they enshrine new laws which don't nationalize, but spread the wealth of these now liquefied massive corporations down into the petit bourgeois. It is still going to be in the interest of the petit bourgeois to keep the market mechanism the way it is and their relationship to the working class the way it is. And what is that going to lead into when 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years pass? Come on, answer. Class. It's going to lead into the reforming of large capital and large capitalists. There's in 20, 30 years, there's going to be a new Amazon, there's going to be a new Facebook, there's going to be a new Walmart, and the contradiction between the small bourgeoisie and the large bourgeoisie will respawn, to say it lightly. So yes, it's a non-revolution. You cannot have a petit bourgeois revolution against the bourgeoisie because they are part of the same animal. Back to square one, innit? Exactly. Thank you, Meg, for the 10 months, you legend. Thank you very much, Meg. And thank you, Taylor Swift Juche. That is the greatest name I've ever seen. Taylor Swift Juche. Thank you very much for the $5. Wait, because we're losing subs because last month, probably on this day, we did really well. I'm going to be fair and lower the number necessary down to 2235. There we go, for the Gamba. See, I'm helping you, cunts. You beautiful, beautiful cunts. What is to be done with the petit bourgeois? Nothing is done with the petit bourgeois. The petit bourgeois simply stops existing once you change the structure of the particular society's economy. Once it becomes when you have the workers, a worker state, the petit bourgeois die out in the form in which they are currently. There is still use value to be extracted from them to an extent, and a lot of them, will become managers. A lot of them will become, in the initial stages of development, people that pass down their craft, blah blah blah. Petit bourgeois class traders are very useful. Bourgeois class traders are the most useful. That is a literal gold mine, pun intended.
Abilities,
because they probably own a gold mine.
Discipline, making them capable to lead society into the next stage, one based on socialized production and the workers' leadership.
What do you think of a dual approach, using the working class and petit bourgeois against monopoly capitalism and then using the workers against the petit bourgeois after? I agree with it 100%, but I need to contextualize what my theoretical perspective is. I believe that the petit bourgeois can be given a certain dose of class consciousness that finds solidarity with workers because the way capitalism is developing right now and the way it was always going to develop eventually leads to the complete monopolization of most industries and the destruction of the so-called petit bourgeois class. It is an inevitability. They will be swallowed whole or in part eventually. And the systems put in place to protect, I don't know, small family businesses or small, private doctor practices or even small dentistries, that is eventually in capitalism no longer going to exist because it will be subsumed, bought out, or either bought out or destroyed in the market by large capital of that particular industry. So ironically, the petit bourgeois will lose no matter what. The petit bourgeois will proletarianize no matter what. And us as representatives or agitators for the workers' cause should tell them, my friend, you will be eaten eventually, and you will become a worker eventually. Do you want to be a worker in a worker society, or do you want to be a worker in capitalism? An unironic play at their greed, which is fine. We're not liberals. We don't do fucking moral platitudes here. The main reason I'm a socialist, I became a socialist, because I worked for someone and I realized how much money I'm making them and how little I'm getting. Fuck that. I'm not a cuck. I ain't getting economically cucked. Fuck that shit. That was the initial spark of class consciousness. It wasn't like, ooh, I want a better society, nicer for everybody. Ooh, I care about others. No, I looked at myself. Then, as I explored the theory, I developed it and so on. So if we play on their greed to an extent, we can tell them, guys, like, at one point, you're not going to exist anymore. But that's very difficult because of, petit bourgeois class brainwashing that all of those fuckers have, which sometimes make them even more insane protectors, violent protectors of capitalism than even, they sometimes do shit that even large capitalists would never think of doing. Yeah, but have you considered, couldn't happen to me, of course. Have you considered that maybe I won't be a petit bourgeois? Maybe I will become a proper member of the bourgeoisie. Maybe I inherited the bakery from my dad. Maybe I will one day be able to make a massive bakery. Thank you, Taylor Swift Juche, for joining the community as well and subscribing. Welcome, my friend. And thank you, Murphy DH, for continuing their gift sub. That is the nicest thing anyone can do. Continuing a gift sub, not only in my community, anywhere else. If you do that, you will just make every stream sustainable. Every stream will be sustainable if people continue the gift sub they've received. And then, that balanced with Oilers, do it like you would. Every stream on planet Earth will be completely sustainable. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Mussolini leveraged the petit bourgeoisie for his fascism. 100%. Everybody leverages the petit bourgeoisie. Everybody leverages them, okay? Everybody, including socialists. We attempt to, but we do not succeed. We will see you at your trial, Yugopnik. What trial, my friend? I was in a factory for neurodivergent people, was supposed to be paid $40 because I was underage, wasn't paid a single cent. Probably the reason I started going left in the first place. Damn. It's pretty jarring seeing even people who work some of the most degrading jobs exhibit petit bourgeois ideology. It is. Sometimes a motherfucker just dumb, as Yugopnik famously said, in the year of our Lord 2023.
Economy as a whole. Since the petty bourgeois leftist intellectual who accepts market competition as a given and sees exploitation as a moral failing rather than a structural class relation, they imagine that society can be changed through argument and ideal blueprints. Instead of grounding themselves in historical experience and the concrete struggle of the masses, they try to reason their system into existence from above. Ulyanov writes about one prominent Narodnik. But the funniest of all is that Mikhailovsky accuses Marx.
It's almost Nietzschean, like reason prevails. Reason does not prevail unless the reasonable take up arms and make sure that reason prevails. Reason doesn't spontaneously prevail. Sure, throughout our history, reason ended up prevailing almost all the time. That's why we had this beautiful pathway of civilizational development. But we had those moments of civilization, of jumps in the way we organize society, because the reasonable said, this is enough, right? It doesn't, reason isn't, that's why metaphysics is such a exceptionally important and brilliant and interesting, but should not be applied to how you view very material, rigid systems of societal organization.
Of not having reviewed all the known theories of the historical process. This is amusing indeed. Of what did 9/10 of these theories consist?
History only bends towards progress because we are bending it. Fuck. Oh, they should put that on your gravestone. That is heavy metal, dude. That is heavy metal. That is rock. That is, oh my God, that is so good.
Of purely a priori, dogmatic, abstract discourses on what is society, what is progress, and the like. Mr. Mikhailovsky's accusation is exactly similar to that of a metaphysician psychologist who has spent all his life writing investigations into the nature of the soul without knowing exactly how to explain a single psychical phenomenon, even in the simplest. Just as you cannot argue about the soul without having explained psychical processes in particular, and put particular psychical processes on a scientific footing, you can't make revolution.
Why is there theory in my alcoholism stream? Alcohol is theory, dude. Alcohol is theory, my friend.
Without understanding the concrete processes in your own class society. In the 1890s, Ulyanov read passages from his early works to a St. Petersburg Marxist circle. One member who met him there.
The less you eat, drink, and read books, the less you go to the theater, the dance hall, the public house, the less you think, love, theorize, sing, paint, fence, etc., the more you save. And the more you save, the more you're a capitalist. Therefore, capitalists de facto are anti-life.
For the first time, said later,
McJane and true motherfucking true. Oh yeah, Petrine, Hipetrine, Hipetrine, Hipetrine. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh 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 yeah, 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 oh yeah. Reminder to all beautiful chatters that during hype trains, only particular hype trains, I whip out the cat book, and as the levels of the hype train rise through the skies, the longer the hype train, the more cats, cute little kitties, you get to see from this book. And if that is not motivation enough for you, I want a gamba as well. So let's utilize this beautiful hype train for you to pay your taxes, support the show, and get us to the gamba moment. Gamba, gamba, gamba. It's weird because the subs are dropping because last month probably we did really well on this day, so I gotta drop it again. I'll drop it to 2,200 and what would be fair, and 15. Okay, I'm not dropping it anymore. You gotta hit this number. Okay, I'm not dropping it anymore. Thank you very much, Benny Boy Troy. Thank you for the prime, as always.
I remember how it thrilled us all.
You are now level 2, and we got Raider. Thank you, Red Cyber Dragon. Welcome, Red Cyber Dragon. This enough? Oh, yeah. Thank you, Taylor Swift Juche. Thank you for the 500. I will count that as a gift sub. Okay, we are level 2. Are we level 3? Oh my God, you're getting so many cats. You're getting so many.
This enough?
You're getting so many Katorinas. Wait, some that I haven't shown you. Should go to the beginning. Okay, where are some of them?
Crazy hamburger! Crazy hamburger!
Oh, Jesus, left on main, baby. True motherfucking true. Let's go. Oh, my God, so close to Gamba. So close to Gamba. So close to Gamba. Thank you. Left on main. I'm going to add you to a taxpayer as well. So what level are we now? What level are we? Come on, motherfucker. Level 4. First, I present you Cats in Kitchen. Cats looking at disgusting pet, also known as human, being like, where the hell my food, you stinky little furless fucking weird skin demon? Okay. Oh, look at these. Oh my fucking God. Oh my God. I'm losing my mind. Look at these. You deserve that. You deserve that. You deserve that. Okay, another one. Oh, look at the sassy one. She is sitting in big shoe. Big shoe too big for kitty. Okay, and then another one because you're level 4. Lady cat. Look at lady cat. This is a Vietnamese revolutionary cat. At least that's what it looks like to me. And she's smoking a cigarette. Why cat smoke a cigarette? I did not know cat can smoke a cigarette. Go level 4. You know what to do if you want to see more, my beautiful chatters. Let's get to that Gamba shit. Come on.
Fairly widely read, they undoubtedly had a strong influence on the Marxist youth at the time. That member was a woman born into a noble but impoverished family from St. Petersburg. Her name, Nadezhda Krupskaya, soon to become Ulyanov's wife and an important Marxist revolutionary.
No.
Ulyanov strongly opposed the Narodniks opportunistically taking Marx's letter to Zasulich to confirm their worldview. He explained that Marx thought the commune could evolve into socialism only if certain historical conditions were met, which no longer existed in Russia by the 1890s. The economic reality of Russia had already changed since Marx's letter, he said. Russia's rapid industrialization was driven by massive projects like the Trans-Siberian Railway and the growth of coal, steel, and mining industries, which all depended heavily on foreign investment. Under the pseudonym Vladimir Ilyin, he wrote the first bigger work that got him clout in Marxist circles, The Development of Capitalism in Russia, where he used data to show that capitalism had already taken root in the country. He analyzed how the commune was already disintegrating, divided between rich peasants, or kulaks, who often became capitalists, and poor peasants, who often became workers, proving that capitalist relations of production were spreading naturally out of the peasant economy.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Barry, as always.
Therefore, capitalism was not a mistake in moral judgment, but a real historical stage that is present in Russia, which has to be dealt with, no matter how much one disliked it.
Level 5 deserves one more cat, baby. One more cat. Let's go. Oh. Oh, I got a beautiful one for you for level 5. It's a kitty taking photo. It's a kitty taking photo. Kitty taking photo. It's a kitty with a photo. Brilliant. Brilliant.
The Narodnik, who considers the bourgeoisie an accident, sees no connection between them and the state. His activity boils down to the modest and precise official liberal activity that is on par with philanthropy, for it does not seriously affect the interests and holds no terror for them at all. The Marxist turns his back on this hodgepodge and says that there can be no other guarantees for the future than the stern struggle of economic classes. Ulyanov would later argue that this same worldview, focused on bad leaders instead of class structures, was at the root of the historic betrayal of social democrats. Even today, many people believe that politics is simply a matter of evil or ignorant individuals making bad decisions, and that replacing them with better people or better policies will fix the system. This naturally leads to reformism, just as it did for many Narodniks. But the real point is that power doesn't just corrupt individuals. It itself is shaped by a deeper system that selects and produces the kind of people who rise within it. It's that system, based on the fundamental antagonism of owners and workers, that must be overthrown. The Narodnik sees the causes of these things in that there is little land, taxes are burdensome, and earnings are falling, i.e., in peculiarities of policy, land, taxation, industrial, and not in the peculiarities of the social organization of production, an organization from which the given policy inevitably follows. This was very important to understand for Ulyanov, since, quote, inability to
Thank you very much, Robocido, for the prime.
understand this can lead to such absolute stupidity as that of appealing to the state as though the political system is not rooted in the economic, does not express it, does not serve it. In short, the cause, in the Marxist view, lies neither in policy, nor in the state, nor in society, but in the present system of Russia's economic organization. Or as Marx put it, the sum total of these relations of production constitutes the economic structure of society, the real foundation on which arises a legal and political superstructure and to which correspond definite forms of social consciousness. Ulyanov argued similarly that the organizational focus on individual terrorism is the opposite manifestation of this impatient petty bourgeois utopianism. It wants to move the masses into revolutionary politics through terror, regardless of how many people are ready for it, as a universal strategic principle above concrete developments. This does not mean that he was against militant action, however, as some like to claim, using his writings to just...
Thank you, Polaris, for the 14 months, you fucking legend. Thank you very kindly. Thank you, Example 2 Unclear. Rah, 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 rah.
justify a peaceful road to socialism, especially during times where reformist opportunism is the dominant trend. What is important for Ulyanov is whether an organization can guide and lead a militant working-class movement, rather than attempting to create one outside the course of historical processes. We will learn more about the Bolsheviks' militant tactics and strategy for revolution in the coming episodes, which will make this point much clearer. Although the Marxist critique proved effective and Marxism became the dominant outlook among Russian revolutionaries in the coming years, the Narodniks will remain quite relevant and would congeal into the Socialist Revolutionary Party, a major player in the coming revolutionary period.
It was a crazy logo.
So what does all of this mean in
30 seconds off the hype train left if you want to see more cats.
concrete practice? It was not Greta Thunberg's activism that created the climate movement. It was climate change and the way of producing under capitalism that caused it, which made figures such as her relevant in the first place. We make our history ourselves, but in the first place under very definite assumptions and conditions. It's important to understand that it's the masses that make history. If you want to make revolution, you must realize first that it's not the Revolutionary Party which can make the transformation by itself, but the working class which fulfills its historical role. The role of professional revolutionaries is to organize and assist the struggle of the most determined and advanced members of that class through a fighting organization, which has a correct analysis of the contradictions in actual society, and which can win the hard-earned trust of the people. The communist leaders could only achieve what they did because a large section of the working class wanted change, and likewise, and crucially, the Russian masses could only confront a centralized and militarized autocracy through the existence of an organization capable to organize that fight. Many self-described Marxists in Russia claimed the Marxist doctrine was just a sociological tool to analyze class society. Ulyanov rejected this bastardization of Marxism, which was not simply an analytical instrument, but a guide for revolutionary action. But how to build such an organization rooted in scientific socialism? Or as Ulyanov will ask, what is to be done? This...
What do? Thank you, Mika, for the prime. Everybody, if you have a prime, be like Mika. Throw it my way, baby.
will be answered in the next episode.
How are we gonna reach the Vulcans?
As opposed to Plekhanov's circle, which was preoccupied with writing, Ulyanov, together with other Marxists, founded a new group, not just to educate, but to agitate and assist the masses in the surging waves of protests and strikes. Among the founders was Ulyanov's close friend and collaborator, a certain Yuliy Tsederbaum. The close comrades would eventually part ways in a historical split that would define leftist politics in the coming decades. As was common in the Tsarist Empire, the revolutionaries would give themselves different names to dodge the secret agencies. Yuliy Tsederbaum calls himself Julius Martov, and Vladimir Ulyanov would henceforth be known as Vladimir Lenin.
Very good video, especially for those that need introduction, an introduction to the Bolshevik Revolution. This is part 2. If you haven't watched part 1, definitely watch it. The video is linked in chat. Very good shit. Very, very good shit. Very, very, very good shit. And it's a great pair, like wine with fine cheese and dry cured meats. With the second video that we're gonna watch from.
I am crashing out.
Me too, my friend. From Revolutionary Thought. Are you actually revolutionary or just performative? So today, I guess the topic of the stream is differentiating between what is to be done and motherfuckers that only talk about what is to be done, but then don't do jack shit.